Hello, this is Kyle, also known as Alien Tube, here with part 4 of my competition cutting sword competition. In this video, I'm going to be doing double cuts. This is the last feat in Combat Con's open cutting, and there's a little bit more to it than just double cuts, but I'm just practicing a single double cut. Now, if you're not familiar with a double cut, what I'm going to try to be doing is coming up to the tatami, an Unterhau, followed by a successful cut through the piece, the free piece, the piece that I cut off the tatami. So you want to cut low on the tatami and then swing quickly through the remaining piece. So you're not hitting the part that's still staked, you're hitting the falling piece, basically. And from what I've done, I've tried a double cut, I think a total of 4 times. I've succeeded twice and failed twice. So I don't have a ton of experience doing this. But what the main thing that I know is the most important thing is focus on that first Unterhau. That first cut is everything. You get that clean, the second cut is not particularly hard. But if you go up there and you're thinking about the second cut, at least when I've tried this, when I failed, I'm up there, I'm thinking about the first cut, and then I start the cut and I immediately start thinking about the second, and it blows the first one. So what I really need to do is focus on that first cut, make that as clean as possible, and then the second cut is usually pretty easy to follow through on. So my original plan was to take the top 2 swords from the first 3 rounds and do the double cuts with them. Well, I couldn't really decide on the top 2 other than the Principe being number 1, and I really just wanted to try a double cut with all of these. So this is, I went ahead and soaked 4 mats, 1 for each of the swords. I normally don't practice double cuts much at all on tatami because it is expensive. You know, a tatami mat is $8 to $10 depending on shipping and all that. And I'm doing basically one go at it, and I'm mostly ruining the mat. You can get scraps and still use some, but there's not a ton of tatami left usually. So this is an expensive cut to do. So a quick note here from me after reviewing the footage, after really thinking about it. Some of the initial thoughts I had, especially during the cutting, were not maybe particularly accurate, but I'm going to leave them in because I think it's an interesting journey from where my initial thoughts were to the final thoughts. So first up is the ATrim XVIIIb.19. So that first double cut, the Unterhau was actually pretty good, but I was too high up on the tatami and the piece just there wasn't enough of it to go for me to get really a good aim at it. There is a double cut feat that you'll see on the same mat. That's a very advanced feat. There's no way I'm good enough to do that yet. Next up is the Principe. So there, I just wasn't fast enough, frankly. That was a really clean Unterhau. I just wasn't fast enough. And this is not a good spike anymore, but I'm going to give it a try anyways. Can't hurt to try another double cut. Again, a really clean Unterhau. I'm just not bringing it around fast enough. I don't know if that's... One thing I'll say is I notice the cut piece is kind of going forward a little, whereas you really want it to stay stationary as possible. I wonder if there's something I can do to improve that. Next is the Sterling Armory 18C. And that is what happens when you start thinking about the second cut before you finish the first one. I was changing the angle of the cut in anticipation of trying to do that second cut. So that's not the sword's fault. That was going to be a clean Unterhau, except that I failed it. I'm going to try again, but this is a terrible re-spike. It doesn't matter as much for a double cut in my opinion, because you're only really needing to get one cut on the staked piece. We'll see. Pretty good Unterhau. Once again, I'm just not fast enough. Lastly is the ATrim XIIIa.19. I was just thinking over in between cuts what I've been doing wrong, what I can improve on. I think my biggest problem actually has been overcommitting to the Unterhau. So I'm following through too much, and then it's taking too long to get the sword back into position. So I'm going to try to do a shorter cut here on the Unterhau. My fear is that I'm going to overthink it, and I'm going to pull the cut too soon, and then I'm going to fail the Unterhau. We'll see. Exactly what just happened. Exactly. This is a terrible re-spike. When you see it coming up like this, you didn't really spike it on the stand. But for a double cut, it might be okay. So that was the closest I got. I actually hit the bottom piece because my cut was a little higher than I wanted it to be, but I got close to hitting the falling piece. So I think I'm onto something there with shortening the cut of the Unterhau, really making it, trying to stop like around here rather than like up around there. I'm overcommitting to the Unterhau. I think that's what's going on. So something to work on. Not really sure how to practice that, if anything other than tatami, to really see the results. I guess I could do I can do double cuts on water bottles, and suppose I could time myself, see how quickly I'm getting through, make sure, that kind of thing. So main thing is I just need to practice not overcommitting those Unterhaus. Okay, I've gone ahead and reviewed all the footage, and I want to give a quick shout out to my friend Kevin Spencer for providing me some additional feedback here, because he really helped me nail in the things I need to work on and some really good feedback. So thank you, Kevin. As always, I really appreciate your tutelage. So there's a couple things that I want to touch on here. First off, I was flat out wrong about the staking not being particularly important on a double cut. It's actually really important. You really need a good spike, because if there's movement on the bottom piece when you're cutting due to a not particularly great spike, it transfers that movement into the top piece, making it either fall or fly, or it transitions that movement so the top piece is not going to stay as cleanly as it could when you get a good cut. So really important to have a good spike for a double cut. I was completely wrong about that. Secondly, the reason I was failing mostly is not my speed. Now the Principe, I did trail a little bit, my tip was dragging a little bit on it, and I think that's because it is a beefier sword than the other ones. But it wasn't really the speed that was my problem. The problem was I was lifting during the cutting. So, and I know exactly what I was doing. If I starting a bit low so that I can cut low on the tatami and have a big piece on top to cut through. If I'm starting low, as I'm cutting, I'm lifting my core. And that's creating a scoop. That is that scoop that I have had issues with for a while now. And it really came into play here. So as I'm scooping the piece, I'm lifting the top piece up, and then it's not falling cleanly. It's not staying in place as well as it could. And therefore it's falling more easily and giving me far less time to get the second cut in. If I can correct that scoop, correct that lift, and just have a 45-degree angle cut, super clean, I probably would have got at least one or two of these double cuts. And at least that's my impression. I think my general speed was fine on review, and generally my edge alignment on the second cut, which is something I've definitely had issues when I've tried this before, generally speaking was decent. There were some where I wasn't great there, but I think I would have got through anyways. But that's the primary thing that I need to work on to make these double cuts work, is fixing that lift, getting that super clean 45-degree angle, and that if I were doing that, I think I would have gotten some of these double cuts. So this didn't really affect my ranking of the swords at all, because I failed with all of them, and it wasn't the sword's fault on any of them. This was my technique that was failing. But what's the final ranking? It's a little tricky, actually. If we look at pure performance, pure cut, the cleanness of the cuts, the effectiveness of the thrusts, all that kind of thing, I don't think it's a surprise to anybody that the Principe pretty much wins that. But it's not my favorite sword to use. That's the thing is, while it's a super effective cutter, it doesn't put that big grin on my face that some of my other swords do. It's satisfying. There's no doubt about that. And it's got a good amount of power, and on certain types of cuts, I think it would absolutely be my favorite. Like if I were doing double mats, I think that would be a great choice. But it does, I do notice I have a little more trouble accelerating the tip. The tip drags a little bit more, especially on Unterhaus with it. So it's not my favorite, but it's the best performing. After that, it really starts to get a little fuzzy. I think for me, the ATrim 18B.19 and the Sterling Armory 18C are neck and neck right there. And my hunch is if I had the Sterling Armory, the edge touched up, and maybe see if the tip could get sharpened a bit better, I think it would probably be pretty much equal with the 18B. But for now, I am putting the 18B above it as number 2 because I love using it. It's just so much fun. And I really like using the 18C, but that 18B.19, something about it that just puts a huge grin on my face. And then the 12A.19 is coming up at the bottom, but honestly, that's doing it a disservice. It doesn't deserve to be ranked at the bottom. If I'm ranking these, I have to choose a ranking, and there it is. But it's a really good sword, and I really enjoyed cutting with it too. So what sword am I going to use in competitions? For now, I think this did definitely give me some insight into that. The Principe is an outstanding cutter, but it's not my favorite to use. My favorite to use right now is the 18B.19. And so my plan for now is to focus on that one, train with it a bit more, try to really unlock its potential, really do a lot of Unterhau practice with it to fix that lift, really do just a lot more cutting with it in general to try to, like I said, unlock its potential and really get a good feel for it. I really enjoy picking up that sword and swinging it around, so that's the one I'm going to plan on. I think the Sterling Armory 18C could easily meet or beat it in my feeling department. But for now, I'm going with the ATrim.19. And that's pretty much the end of this competition cutting sword competition. I think this has been a lot of fun to do. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and until next time, Alien Toot out.